In the state of Indiana, beyond the endless fields that dominate the landscape of the Crossroads of America, lie scars of history in the form of towns slowly being erased from the map. That may sound sad, but what if these towns are also being erased from memory? Yes, Indiana isn't just about the roar of engines in Indianapolis. It's also about the silence of old buildings and settlements that have become ghosts of their own past. From towns deliberately drowned in the name of progress to tiny villages inhabited only by a handful of elderly residents on the brink of extinction. Today, we'll explore 15 small towns in Indiana that have lost their heartbeat. Some have already been abandoned, and others are struggling through their final breaths before becoming forgotten history. First, we begin this journey at a place often nicknamed the Drowned Town. Located in Brown County, Elkinsville was once a self-sustaining and prosperous farming community founded in the 1850s. But its fate changed completely in the 1960s when the government decided to build the Salt Creek Dam to create Lake Monroe. All residents were forced to sell their land and relocate. Interestingly, after all the buildings were torn down, the lake's water line never actually reached the town center. Now, all that remains is a quiet valley with a paved road that abruptly ends in the woods and an old bridge that leads to nowhere. Technically, the town no longer exists on the map, but the spirit of its history is still deeply felt by anyone bold enough to venture into the dense Hoosier National Forest. But while Elkinsville died due to government policy, the next town disappeared because of nature's wrath and disease. Located on the banks of the White River in Martin County, Hindostan Falls was once predicted to become one of Indiana's largest cities in the early 19th century. The town had it all: a busy flour mill, a hotel, and a post office serving thousands of westward migrants. But a disaster struck between 1820 and 1824. A mysterious plague, believed to be cholera or yellow fever, ravaged the town so severely that the local cemetery could no longer hold the dead. The survivors fled in fear, abandoning their belongings on the spot. Now, the grandeur of Hindostan Falls is marked only by strange holes in the riverbed rock that once served as the base for milling machines. Standing at the edge of its beautiful falls, it's hard to imagine that beneath your feet once stood a center of government now buried in silence. Meanwhile, at the edge of Newton County lie the ruins of a great ambition called Conrad. Founded by Jenny Conrad in 1908, this town was designed with very modern ideas for its time, complete with a grand hotel, church, and school. Jenny herself wanted to turn Conrad into the largest cattle ranching hub in the Midwest. Unfortunately, the soil in this area was dominated by fine sand left behind by the ancient Kankakee Lake, making farming and ranching difficult to sustain. After Jenny's death in 1939, the town was gradually abandoned by its workers. Today, Conrad has merged back into nature within the Kankakee Sands Preserve. The scenery here is striking, revealing brick ruins slowly being covered by sand and wild vegetation, as if nature is reclaiming what was once taken from it. Moving over to Warren County, Sloan stands as a classic example of a railroad town that lost its purpose. Yes, this town once thrived thanks to the New York Central Rail Line, which carried local farmers' crops to distant markets. But as the railway shut down in the mid-20th century, Sloan's reason for existing disappeared along with it. Today, there are hardly any homes left. Dominating Sloan's skyline is a single massive concrete grain elevator, cracked and rusting. For urban exploration photographers, Sloan is a paradise, its structure stark against Indiana's flat landscape. standing as a monument to an agricultural era that has since shifted to more modern forms of transport. Not far from Sloan lies a site that was once Indiana's most luxurious vacation destination for the elite. Can you imagine America's wealthiest people, including actors and business moguls, gathering in a tiny Indiana town just to take mud baths? That was Kramer in its heyday, thanks to the Mudlavia Springs Hotel. Built over a mineral spring believed to have miraculous healing powers, the hotel was a glittering retreat. Unfortunately, its grandeur burned to the ground in the 1920s. Since then, efforts to revive Kramer's glory have always failed. Today, if you visit the Mudlavia site, all that remains are moss-covered stone foundations and an abandoned water bottling plant. The atmosphere here is both eerie and beautiful, a reminder of how quickly luxury can turn to ruins when fortune stops smiling. From towns that have completely died, let's visit one still hanging on, though just barely. First up is New Amsterdam, perched on the banks of the Ohio River in Harrison County, and officially one of the smallest legally incorporated towns in Indiana. Its population hovers between just 25 and 30 people. After a long history of disasters, especially the massive flood of the 1930s, many residents left and never came back. Visiting New Amsterdam today feels like stepping into a time machine. The streets are silent, and you can count the occupied homes on one hand. Though the town still has a functioning government, its future is extremely fragile. With no economic growth and no young generation staying, New Amsterdam is simply waiting to become a chapter in a history book. But New Amsterdam isn't the only place left behind. Fort Ritner tells an even more remote story. Often called one of the most isolated spots in southern Indiana, it once served as a key stop along the B&O Railroad line. But the geographic isolation that was once an advantage has become its downfall. Limited road access and a total lack of public facilities have caused the population to shrink drastically. Today, Fort Ritner is filled with leaning wooden homes, many left empty with their former owners' belongings still inside. There are no stores, no gas stations, just silence, occasionally broken by a train that passes through without stopping. This is a haunting portrait of a settlement slowly falling asleep for good. A similar silence hangs over a uniquely positioned town straddling two states. Imagine a town split cleanly down the middle by the border between Indiana and Illinois. State Line City was once a small hub for trade and fuel stops, but after the interstate highways were built further away, the local economy collapsed almost overnight. Today, the brick buildings in its tiny downtown look forlorn, their windows boarded up. A few residents remain, but the atmosphere is ghostly. Many once iconic businesses closed decades ago, yet their signs still hang in the wind, as if waiting for customers who will never return. If State Line City died because of lost traffic, this next town is endangered by the loss of its primary industry. Yes, Duggar is a town fighting hard to avoid becoming a ghost town. For over a century, its economy was built entirely on coal mining. But as major mines shut down and the energy sector shifted toward renewables, Duggar lost its economic lifeline. Demographic data shows a steady population decline over the last decade. The closure of the local high school a few years ago was a major blow, prompting many young families to relocate to bigger cities. Driving through its main road now, you'll see rows of empty storefronts. Even so, the residents who remain still display a strong sense of community. But without new industry, Duggar sits firmly on the red list of towns that may be fully abandoned within the next 10 to 20 years. In the past, it was a key river port and home to the Grand Merom Conference Center. But as river traffic declined, so did its economic relevance. Today, the town is filled with large Victorian houses that feel too big for the current population. Many of its historic buildings are in dire need of restoration, but unfortunately, there's no funding. Merom feels like a period film set abandoned by its crew. The beauty remains, but the vitality has faded, creating a striking sense of sadness. Speaking of grand abandoned buildings, we can't skip the dark side of Gary. Though technically a city, areas around the City Methodist Church have become one of the most famous urban ghost towns in the world. The city collapsed following the decline of the steel industry in the 1970s and 80s. The once majestic 9-story church now stands roofless, with trees growing inside its sanctuary. The surrounding area is nearly empty, block after block of homes demolished or burned. It's a stark reminder that ghost towns don't only happen in remote villages, but can also emerge from what were once thriving industrial powerhouses. Back in the countryside, we find a town remembered mostly for its haunted legend. Tunnelton in Lawrence County might never have gained attention if not for the famous big tunnel nearby. Yet the village itself is a portrait of slow extinction. Once home to railroad workers and their families, Tunnelton is now just a small cluster of old houses by the tracks. No commercial activity remains. An aging population and lack of interest from younger generations, especially with the area's ghostly reputation, leave Tunnelton quieter with each passing year. Meanwhile, there's Metamora in Franklin County, a town with a uniquely frozen fate. Originally a canal town from the 1830s, Metamora has managed to preserve much of its original structure. But visit outside of tourist season or on a weekday, and the harsher reality reveals itself. Metamora barely has any working-age residents. Most of the buildings here only open on weekends for tourists. Functionally, as a self-sustaining town, Metamora is already dead. It now resembles more of an open-air museum than a living community. And it's true. Without the support of seasonal tourism, this place likely would have vanished from the map long ago. In Ohio County lies a place known as Buffalo. Don't confuse it with the city in New York. This Buffalo is one of the quietest settlements still technically standing in the U.S. Once a key crossroads for local traders in the early 1900s. Today, it barely shows any sign that it was ever a town. Only a few scattered old homes remain, along with the overgrown remnants of a former general store. There's no welcome sign here, and if you're not paying close attention to the map, you might drive through without ever realizing you just passed through a fading piece of history. And finally, we end with a ghost town that lies hidden beneath water, a place many in Indiana forget even exists. Much like Elkinsville, Monument City was evacuated in 1965 to make way for the Salamone Reservoir. Yes, this town now sits at the bottom of a lake. What makes it truly eerie is what happens during periods of extreme drought, like in 2012. As water levels drop drastically, the foundations of buildings, old concrete roads, and even the stumps of long-dead trees begin to emerge. Seeing photos of this sunken town resurrected gives you chills, as if it were rising from the grave. only to vanish again beneath the surface. In Indiana, history isn't just something you read in books. It's etched into cracked walls, rusted railroad tracks, and the submerged foundations of homes long forgotten. In the end, these towns remind us that when industry leaves, transportation is rerouted, or nature reclaims what was once taken. What's left behind are only memories,